The Delphi murders. In February 2017, two young girls, Abby Williams and Libby German, set out on a winter hike in the quiet town of Delphi, Indiana. What happened next would devastate a community and spark one of the most haunting murder investigations in recent history. That chilly day in February, the girls decided to take advantage of a day off from school. They set out on the Delphi's mourning Bridge, a trail or a place well loved by locals for its beauty and solitude. The girls would never return.
On that breaking news from Carroll County.
Police continue to search for two teenage girls who went missing early yesterday. Now, Naomi Peskovich, she is in Carroll County gathering information and joins us with what we know so far and about where those girls were last seen. Good morning.
Ben and Julia, good morning to you. This is the entrance to the trail where those two 13-year-olds were last seen. Officers, law enforcement, they have stopped the search for the night. But in the meantime, other folks have come out. We've seen family. We just saw a group who didn't even know the girls come out here because they heard the story and wanted to come out. They're here with flashlights, searching for them, doing anything they can. There's been so much pressure to try and find these two young girls since they went missing yesterday afternoon. In the meantime, we do want to give you another look at these photos. This is so important so that if you do see them, you can let police know. Both of them, again, 13 years old. They're both about 5 feet 4 inches tall. Liberty or Libby German. She has shoulder-length blonde hair and blue eyes. She was wearing a tie-dyed shirt, some gray sweatpants, and also black shoes. Then there's Abby or Abigail Williams. She's also 5'4" with medium-length blonde hair and hazel eyes. She was wearing a gray zip-up sweatshirt and some jeans. Meantime, this search started again yesterday afternoon. The two actually had the day off school yesterday, so they decided they wanted to have some fun, spend some time on the trail, and take some photographs. They were dropped off by a family member. They were supposed to be picked up around 3 o'clock, but when that family member arrived, the girls were not here. They weren't answering their text messages or phone calls. Libby's grandfather tells us the search started right away.
We started going through all the social media things, picking up, looking at Facebook, has she talked to anybody, or had the girls been talking with anybody, Snapchatting or whatever the kids do today, back and forth, and really didn't find anything. The last message I think we found going out was like about 2:30, which was a Snapchat of a picture of them out there on this bridge on the trail system. And that was the last communication we've had.
And that bridge is a hallmark of this area, the Monon High Bridge. It's on this sign behind us. It's a place that's frequented by folks who live around here, but still the conditions of the bridge may be dangerous. Libby's grandfather is going to tell us why. That's coming up in our next half hour of Sunrise. In the meantime, we've shared these pictures online. If you see them, please help the family and share those photos as well. Ben and Julia?
All right, yeah, hopefully this will lead to finding those girls. Thanks.
Abigail Williams, or Abby, and Liberty German, Libby, were best friends. One 13, one 14 years old. These two were known for their outgoing personalities, love of sports, and curiosity that often led them outdoors to explore. The last known image of Abby and Libby, taken by Libby on her phone, shows Abby walking along the Monon High Bridge. By late afternoon, they were reported missing. The following day, the search ended with a tragic discovery.
Investigation. No further information will be released at this time. We have nobody in custody at this time. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, there is somebody out there that did this horrendous crime, and we're going to track them down.
It is disturbing. It is concerning as sheriff in my position, and I want to, I guess, assure the community, as Trooper Riley indicated, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We feel confident, and we're going to do everything we can within our resources to reach justice in this situation.
As a motorcycle rider, there's a unique sense of freedom in traveling open roads or trails. Yet in Delphi, it's the same sense of isolation that adds to the haunting nature of this case. When riding alone, you're vulnerable, just like the girls were on that bridge. In a brave act of awareness, Libby had started recording on her phone. She captured a grainy video of a man approaching, and a little audio recording of him saying, "Guys, down the hill." It's one of the most haunting clues and a testament to her bravery.
Hey, good afternoon, good evening, Jenny. There has been a steady stream of cars pulling in here to the parking lot at Delphi Community High School, and a steady stream of people all afternoon waiting to get inside the school, anxious to pay their respects to the families of Libby German and Abby Williams. Actually, people started lining up well in advance of the start of this event. We got here, we have some video from when we first arrived around 3 o'clock this afternoon, and the visitation wasn't scheduled to start until 4. But even then, you could see the parking lot already full of cars, a line of people already formed outside. No doubt, hearts are very heavy here in Delphi, and this is also a way for community members to support one another. Now, Naomi Garcia Nava lives here in Delphi and has 3 children that attend the schools here. She's here to help. She spent the afternoon volunteering, tending to the needs of the family and handing out food and water to those leaving the visitation. For her, this is personal.
It was unbelievable. It is Delphi after all. It's family. That way I've always put it. It's everyone knows each other, so I could not believe what was happening. It was very shocking.
We're all sort of hurting a little bit. If we could share that, maybe it might be easier.
And Dennis Walker there on his way into the visitation. He just moved here 4 years ago, but he said from day one, this community has surrounded him and supported him. And in some small way, he just wanted to be able to give back. Now, we have seen groups of people standing in the parking lot talking, again, supporting one another, just a gathering point, a touch point for the community today to get out and support one another. We understand there are grief counselors from the community inside, and they've been at the school all week long to support the students and teachers, and they'll be here next week to continue that support as the district says they're trying to maintain as normal a school day as possible. Now tonight at 8 o'clock there's going to be a lantern lighting and launch again in honor of Libby and Abby, and we'll be here for that and bring more to you tonight on the Night Beat. Jenny?
All right, Carrie, reporting live for us in Delphi. Wonderful to see all of that support in a very difficult situation. Thanks, Carrie.
This is a small town up there in Carroll County, and it's still distraught over the loss of 2 of their own.
In fact, our Eyewitness News reporter Emily Longnecker tonight continues our team coverage in Delphi with how people there continue to cope with the loss of Abby and Libby. Emily?
John and Andrea, people here in Delphi are cautious tonight about saying too much of anything. Many of them knew these 2 young girls and they know their families, and they are just finding it still very difficult to talk about what happened. On the outskirts of town, though, where police found the 2 teens' bodies, people are talking, sharing their disbelief and anger. Against the beauty of the sunshine and bright blue skies Wednesday, it was still hard for Ron Logan to believe the violence visited upon two young teens just out for a hike on a day off from school.
Who would have thought they'd let their children out to do something special that day, take a trip down, and that turn out with a disaster like this?
For 53 years, Logan's lived on the country road near the trail that leads to the Monon High Bridge.
People walk up and down with their children, and yeah, it's quite a nice little trail, and the bridge is real.
Never, though, has Logan seen anything like what he has this week. The search for an eventual discovery of the bodies of Libby German and Abby Williams.
The area that they were in is very hard to get to. I mean, you can't get there unless you walk there. I mean, so somebody would be walking with them or something.
Those are the same kind of thoughts Marvin Sandifer keeps mulling over. His daughter used to hike the same trail.
She said, I seen a couple scruffy looking guys back in there, but you know, they never bothered.
Days would turn into weeks. Weeks would turn into months. Months would turn into years. A sense of helplessness would fall over the families. Things in the town would begin to return to normal, but never forgotten, just behind the shadows. A wonder where this monster was. Law enforcement pursued multiple leads and suspects, each seemingly pointing to someone known to the area or familiar with the Monon High Bridge. The public called him Bridge Guy, and the community became engulfed in theories about his identity.
Breaking news tonight at 6, an arrest in the unsolved Delphi murders case.
Abby Williams and Libby German were killed 5 years ago in February of 2017.
And tonight, a man is behind bars in connection with this case. We've got team coverage for you tonight at 6.
Our Emily Longnecker has the background of this case. Rachel Krause is in Delphi with what she's learned about the man who was arrested.
But we want to begin tonight at 6 with our Karen Campbell, who's live from the Carroll County Jail. She's got more on today's breaking update. Karen?
Well, Scott, we have learned that the man who police arrested, his name is Richard Allen. The man arrested in the Delphi murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. We were told that he is currently being held at the White County Jail for Carroll County. Now, the sheriff there could not release any more information on this. That's because of a press conference, a news conference that is scheduled on Monday. Indiana State Police, along with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, numerous other agencies, the Carroll County prosecutors, they're all going to be at this press conference again, held Monday. There, they're going to announce this arrest in the Delphi murder case. Also included in that, we've learned the U.S. Marshal Service will also be a part of this press conference. Again, we don't know much now, only what the prosecutor's office would say, only what Carroll County sheriffs would say. Again, that Richard Allen is in custody tonight. But now I do want to turn it over to my colleague, Rachel Krause, who is also here in Delphi, and she's learning more about the suspect in this case. Rachel.
Yeah, and Karen, as you mentioned, as we wait to hear more information from police about who Richard Allen is and his connection to the murders of Abby Williams and to Libby German, we're also working to find out more information about who Allen is here in the Delphi community. Now, here's what we know so far. Property records from the county show that Richard Allen lives along Whiteman Drive in Delphi. We knocked on the door of the home Allen's believed to live at. No one answered the door at the home. Neighbors who live just down the road spoke to us. Some say they didn't know Allen well. Others were shocked to hear of his arrest. Throughout the afternoon, Whiteman Drive has been busy with folks from Delphi and around Indiana coming to see his home. Stephanie Roberson drove up from Edwardsport, Indiana to be here for a memorial for Abby and Libby. Now she hopes with this arrest, their family will finally have some answers.
Just pray that, you know, if this is the guy, they got him, and if there's more involved, that he'll talk and won't go down alone. So.
Now, we are still working to find out more information about who Richard Allen is and his role here in the Delphi community. We'll be continuing to search for answers to that throughout the evening here.
Rachel and Karen as well. Indiana State Police have been investigating this case for more than 5 years. They are the lead agency in this case. It was back in 2019 that State Police Superintendent made a statement, and this was a statement made publicly, and it was directed at the girl's killer.
To the killer, who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight.
On October 28th, 2022, some 5 years later, after the deaths of Abby and Libby, Richard Allen, a resident of Delphi, was arrested. He had been living quietly among the community for years, working at a local CVS. The breakthrough was a bullet found near the scene, one reportedly linked to a firearm Allen owned. But the case against him moving forward, the defense countered with a chilling alternate theory.
Thanks for joining us here on 13 News at noon, everyone. I'm Karen Campbell. We begin with the latest on the Delphi murders trial. The defense team is filing a new motion to allow their Odinism theory to be introduced. Attorneys for Richard Allen say Abby Williams and Libby German may have been part of a ritual killing, but they need the special judge's permission to share that theory with the jury. They filed a new motion this morning, citing testimony from the state's witnesses to allow their theory in trial. They say the crime scene shows clear signs of ritual murder, pointing to a branch of Norse paganism called Odinism. Allen's attorneys argue blocking the Odinism theory and explanation would violate his constitutional right to provide alternative explanations to the state's evidence.
Yep, that's right. In a surprise twist, Allen's defense team suggested that the murders could have been a ritualistic killing, possibly involving a cult-like group. They allege that certain aspects of the crime scene support this theory, challenging the prosecution's evidence. When riding alone, there's a sense of watching your back, especially on deserted roads. This alternate theory of cult involvement adds a terrifying dimension to the case, especially in a town as small as Delphi, where everyone knows each other. The murders of Abby and Libby have cast a long shadow over Delphi. Families, friends, and residents have remained deeply affected, rallying for justice and honoring the girls' memories. Libby's sister, Kelsey, has been an outspoken advocate, working tirelessly to keep the investigation alive, and the prosecutors, doing their job against the twisted minds of the defense, have put in the lion's share of work to bring this monster to justice. In 2023, Allen would send a letter to the then warden of the prison. After everything, after the mental breakdown, after keeping his mouth shut for so long, he confessed in a chilling letter to the warden.
That's where our Emily Longnecker combed through thousands of pages of exhibits from both the prosecution and the defense, all from pretrial hearings back in July and August. One of the most notable exhibits was a letter reportedly from Richard Allen to the Indiana Department of Correction warden. It's dated March 5th, 2023, and requests an interview with the Day 16 of the Delphi murders trial saw the defense team for Richard Allen rest their case, but today continued with more testimony. In a moment, we'll hear from our WTHR legal analyst, Katie Jackson-Lindsay. But first,
and then a long-awaited moment of triumph. Today is the day. The judgment came down. I have the video footage. I'm going to share it with y'all. But to know that this monster will finally be put away for good brings me a little bit of peace after being so involved and invested in this story.
I'm curious to know what the faces of the juries, were they stoic? Were they, did they look at anyone?
To be honest, Emily, I was looking directly at Richard Allen, and I was trying to look at the families. We should mention the sentencing date has been set, so December 20th is when Richard Allen will be sentenced, and during the sentencing portion of the verdicts being read today, this was after the verdicts were read, but at that point, Richard Allen turned around. It was the first emotion that we saw. He looked at his wife, Kathy, and he said, "Are you okay?" Kathy was crying. Richard Allen's mother was in court. She was crying. Again, as things started to clear out, Jerry Holman, Indiana State Police detective, who has been on this case for multiple years, he went over and he hugged the defense team and he kissed Nick McClellan, the prosecutor. There were a lot of hugs on the side of the prosecution. Again, after the families were starting to leave, we were asked to stay in the courtroom to give the families a chance to file out. The families went up to the prosecution team, shook hands, hugged as well. So a lot of emotion. Again, everyone kind of kept things in check while the jury was in there, while the judge was in there afterward. That's when we saw the emotion really starting to let out.
This is the day, Emily, and we've heard the family say this is the day many, many times, but now finally this is the day for justice for the families of Libby and Abby. Yeah, I can hear them saying it. Today is the day. They would say it so many times over the years, and to be here in this moment, I have goosebumps considering it. I'm thinking today is the day for them. Today is the day for Abby and Libby and their families, the people that love them. There's no doubt that this legally was, in many ways, if you looked at outside observers, there was just a circus going on there. I mean, there was just no love lost between the defense and the prosecution and the judge in this case. Often after we hear a verdict, then we hear, well, there will be an appeal. Any word, any talk about that, walk us through those steps as we count down to sentencing, where at last report I had read that Richard Allen could get up to 130 years in prison if convicted of all the charges. Is that consistent with what you've been finding?
Well, if I remember correctly, I think it's 46 years on the main counts, and whether those are going to be concurrent, whether those are going to be consecutive, there will be a pre-sentence report that will be filed that the judge will consider at the sentencing hearing. The judge will hear from both the prosecutor and from the defense to try to mitigate as far as either how lengthy or how short the sentence will be. So again, the judge is the one who's going to decide what the sentence is going to be. And to your point regarding an appeal, we pretty much, that's almost a certainty. There was certainly a lot of evidence that the defense wanted to enter into this case, that they were not allowed to, that Judge Gall told them that she did not think that they had enough of a link between some of the things that they wanted to bring in and the actual crime. So the defense most certainly will be filing an appeal in this case, and it will go to the Indiana Court of Appeals.
And but would they file that after he is sentenced?
It's a good question. I don't know that. I'll be interested to hear that from Katie Jackson-Lindsay as far as the timing of how all that plays out, but I believe it probably would take place after the sentence.
Because listen, there was a handful of people that this defense team believed in their alternate theory was responsible in this crime, and they wanted to be able to talk about that to the jury. Again, as you said, Judge Gall ruled no, that's not going to happen, that would confuse the jury, and we're going to stick with the set of facts right here, and that's what they did. Richard Allen was arrested and has been in custody since October of 2022, so 2 years served. Part of the testimony in this case is that was a very difficult time, especially when he was in solitary confinement. Having a mental breakdown was part of the argument, even part of the testimony that we're trying to determine whether or not he had developed some sort of psychosis. So that's another thing that will be taken into consideration in the sentencing as well for those 2 years since he's been here in custody, state custody since 2022. Yeah,
all those things will be a factor. And there are there are multiple items that the defense will want to bring up on appeal, whether they were allowed to enter certain things that the judge did not allow them to, witnesses that they wanted to bring, evidence that they wanted to show the jury that they were not able to. So, and even the procedural moves that happened long ago, dating back here over the last year in this case, things that Judge Gall ruled on, those will all be brought up, and all of those things were preserved on the record by the defense team so that when this case does go to the Court of Appeals, those will be considered. But again, today, guilty. That is the verdict. That is, these 12 jurors who spent the last nearly month of their lives looking at all the evidence, looking at all the testimony. Decisive decision from these jurors today. They say Richard Allen is guilty of killing Abby Williams and Libby German.
And we have not been able to talk with that panel, and that we may never hear from them, or we may. I mean, it depends if they want to talk about what those deliberations were like, what were key points of evidence, was it the confession, was it the cartridge, what was it that led them to have this unanimous decision beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, when you think about those confessions, Bob, that we heard of him, at least the ones that they played in court, in those confessions, I mean, he sounded fairly logical, no?
He did. The one confession that stands out in my mind the most was on a call to his mother Janice, and he said, did Kathy, my wife, tell you that I confessed? And she said, yeah, we're not going to talk about that. You didn't do it. They're messing with your mind. He said, no, I did it. And she said, no, honey, I can't. I know you don't have it in you to producing like that. And his response was, Mom, I would sit here and tell you I did it if I didn't do it. And that really stood out to me. So ultimately then it comes down for the jurors to figure out, do they believe the state's witnesses that he was, thinking clearly at that time, or that he was in a state of psychosis? These jurors believed, at this point, they believed the prosecutor, they believed the state, saying Richard Allen was in his right mind when he made those statements. And a lot of times you hear when someone says something, believe them. And in this situation, the jury believed Richard Allen when he said, I killed Abby and Libby.
Justice feels like the end of the road, but in reality, it's just another turn on the journey where many lives have been forever altered by a monster of a man. I always try to be as respectful as I can in these videos. There's a family out there who mourn, but today, a little glint of light, knowing their daughter's killers is forever behind bars. This has been a Bleek Rides, Motorcycles and Murder true crime story. If you like the content I do here, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, I really want you to let that dislike button know and go ahead and push it twice. If you're into this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I do a wide variety of things here on the channel, but this is one of them. This is Bleek Ride saying thank you for joining the ride and remembering Abby and Libby with me.